Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth, and fancy seeing you here in Jew. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Hello, welcome back to Big Mouth. Yes, it's another Doctor Who video, and it's more news on the season finale. Let's take a look at this. Doctor Who production news. This is not an official account, but I would follow it over on Twitter if I were you, because it does really tell you the facts of what's going on and what Chris Chibnall is saying. This is what he said. The Timeless Child is mentioned as far back as the Ghost Monument. And the final episode of this series is where some of those questions get answered. It's a huge emotionally finale. It's a huge emotional finale with lots of Cybermen, and it runs for 65 minutes. Chris Chibnall, Doctor Who magazine. So basically, all this we're hearing is coming from the Doctor Who magazine, and he's happily spilling about the finale. Now, some of that stuff we already know. Now, I actually thought the Timeless Child was first mentioned in The Woman Who Fell to Earth, but maybe I'm wrong. And after all, Chris Chibnall's saying this, he should know more than I do. So. A feature-length episode of the finale, 65 minutes. That's pretty awesome. So this is going to be a massive finale. Whether you like Chibnall, whether you like Jodie as the Doctor, this is massive. This is event television. If you're a fan of these things, you definitely should watch live. And if you can't, watch it as soon as you can, because really, really exciting. So to reiterate, some of those questions get answered. The Timeless Child is mentioned as far as back as the Ghost Monument. So, what of these questions will be answered? I think we're going to find out who the Timeless Child is. But seeing the finale is called The Timeless Children, that changes everything, doesn't it? Who are they? And I did discuss this already in my other video, but I did want to come back and give you those extra quotations from Chris Chibnall, because basically he's going to answer something and pose more questions. We are not going to find out why there are more Doctors that we've never met in the timeline. And I think the Timeless Children are these new versions of the Doctor that were leaked before we even saw Spyfall Episode 1. Now, it's going to be interesting what kind of bracket you fall down on. There's people ranting and raving, I don't want pre-Chibnall Doctors. I don't want a pre-Chibnall Doctor. The point is, it's new. It's interesting. I don't know whether I'm going to accept this or not. If it's done in a good way, in an exciting way, in a revolutionary lighting the blue touch paper way, and I think this makes Doctor Who and its canon even more exciting, and it's already awesome. You could leave it alone. But Doctor Who's been running for a hell of a long time. And you've got to play with these things. You've got to make them interesting. And it's not... Sometimes I think that classic fans, and I'm a fan of the classic series, I started with Peter Davison, so you can't accuse me of coming in cold to the New Who era. Peter Davison was a revolutionary Doctor. He was young, vibrant, very similar to what David Tennant was. Very similar. Funny that Davison is Tennant's father-in-law. Who would have saw that coming? But I just feel that some people didn't like Peter Davison because he wasn't as old and as gruff as the other Doctors. But just like Peter Davison's Doctor Who was really different. I mean, he was my first Doctor. I loved him. Without Peter Davison's Doctor and the people who were producing the show back then, I wouldn't have fallen in love with this character or this show. And I wouldn't have come back because I didn't watch Colin Baker. I couldn't get into him or Sylvester McCoy, even though I thought that Ace was awesome. But really, what really lit my imagination after all that was Doctor Who the movie. Now, most Doctor Who fans hate Doctor Who the movie, but I think respect Paul McGann as a great actor and a great Doctor. And I agree. There are some things in there where you think, some people hate Eric Roberts' Master. It's very, very Americanized and Hollywood styled, that Doctor Who movie. It's true, because Americans were making that show. I still regret the fact that they didn't take a leap of faith and allow that to be ordered to series. Because I think the longer people watch that, the more integrated of that way of making Doctor Who people would have been. And literally, it was kind of New Who, but in a different way. So there's this sign of the people who will never accept anything new. The truth is, you can never please us Doctor Who fans. We're going to bitch about something. When we saw the Cyberman kind of salute the Doctor and he was meant to be Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart, some of us were moaning it's disrespectful. But all Stephen tried to do was respect an actor that we all loved and a character that we all loved. He wasn't trying to be disrespectful. And sometimes I think you need to take a step back. We don't know how this arc is going to develop. We don't even know, because there's definitely multiple versions of the Doctor we haven't met before. That's a fact. That's happening, right? I know it. I even know what actors are playing these roles, right? So I know it's happening, right? I shouldn't have even said that, but this isn't scripted. I don't think it matters. It is happening. We are going to meet multiple versions of the Doctor, another 12 that we've never seen before. So it's happening, whether we like it or not. Now, the question is now, do you just want to say, no? Or do you want to say, right, he's painting that canvas, let's see what the man's attempting to do first. Now, a lot of people are going to hate it, especially, I think the real agenda isn't really pre-Hartnell. It's because people know probably most, if not all of these new Doctors will be female. Again, if they're great versions of the Doctor, I'm not fussed. And people will say, well, this is political. Now, the cultural war is in our entertainment. And it's kind of been infringed by the people working in the industry. And our reactions to this cultural war are very interesting. Because I think sometimes we react before we see. And I see it. And this has started ever since Trump became president and Brexit. We're all on a knife edge. We're all so angry with each other. Instead of saying, do you know there was someone on Good Morning Britain this morning? And she was saying something. And I think she was a conservative. I am not a conservative. And I said to my dad, I said, listen, that's her view. It's not her fault. Let her have her view. I don't agree with it. And I think we need a lot more of that attitude. Accept each other's views without going to war about everything. You know, the reason the Bolstrecks of this world and your neurotic channels and your geeks and gamers have been so successful is because they know how to manipulate our hate. They took a film like The Last Jedi, which I think is underwhelming and watered down and disappointing. It's true, but they only hate that film because of the political subtext. And that's the problem. What Hollywood are trying to do is give minorities and females a platform they didn't have 20, 30 years ago. That's what they're attempting to do. Now, sometimes they do it in a great way, like we see in Doom Patrol, the way the representation for the LGBTQ community, the cruelty that gay people faced back in the day as well, beaten, killed, you know, things like that. Doom Patrol do it a great way, the whole representation thing. Some creatives haven't got a clue. They put their big boots on and it becomes ugly. And then it insensifies people. I think you look at Ghostbusters 2016, a film that wasn't a horrible film, but the whole marketing was girl power, blah, 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 and it triggered a lot of people. Now, that film could have ended up being a hit, because I don't think it's a bad film, by the way. I think the three actors were amazing. But if, for example, let's say you had 2 women and 2 men in that team, I think it would have been a much different story. And if it linked in with the original Ghostbusters, it could have been quite interesting. But unfortunately, Paul Feig just looked at the avenues of representation. And when you're looking at putting one gender up and raising it up, instead of saying, do you know what? We are trying to represent, but we also are trying to make a piece of entertainment here. And there's a balance. And I think with Doctor Who, and I think the agenda is Jodie's casting, no question about it. I've been pretty outspoken about the fact that there are many other women who have the screen presence that Jodie doesn't, who could have played, for me, a much better, more exciting David Tennant-esque Matt Smith Doctor. But that's not what this man wants to do, right? So he wants to represent a woman, but he wants to represent a more kind of calmer Doctor who's not jumping about and being Tennant-Smith-esque, right? That's his choice as a Doctor Who fan, as a showrunner of Doctor Who. I don't think it's the greatest thing I've ever seen in terms of Doctor Who, but I do think this year, and before I go, because I'm really excited about what I'm hearing, because we're going to get some answers to some questions we've been asking all season, but this will not be wrapped up, and I'm very excited. My assertion is that I never went to bed at night begging for a female doctor, but when we got one, and it was Jodie, because I genuinely loved her in Broadchurch. I thought she played the grieving mother so fantastically compellingly. You know, when you hear Bolstrek and, Neurotic say she can't act, well, go and watch Broadchurch. You say you've seen Broadchurch, but have you actually seen Broadchurch? Have you seen Jodie Whittaker's CV? Have you seen her career? Have you seen her perform? She's a good actor, a really good actor. And she's playing the Doctor the way she's been told to play the Doctor, right? It doesn't make her a bad actor. So I think we all kind of were taken back. A female Doctor is something to get used to. I said they should have made the Doctor herself have trouble getting used to being a woman. It would have echoed the kind of audience's hopes and fears, and it would have worked. But they didn't want to go that way, right? Because now we're kind of finding out that maybe the Doctor's been a woman before, and so that wouldn't really work, would it? Anyway, right, so last year I was very reactive to Jodie Whittaker, and I just felt the show was very watered, too tame. But my half-term report about season 11 is this. No, season 12 is this. My favourite episode is Spyfall. My favourite standalone episode is Nikola Tesla. I think the other standalone episodes in terms of Orphan 55 and the one we had last week, and the title escapes me right now, I think they go back to the kind of format of season 11, kind of forgettable, but not terrible episodes like people are saying. I think that's the way he wants to do more educational episodes rather than, a little message, a kind of He-Man Masters of the Universe thing. And that's the way he wants to do things. But in terms of Jodie and the directors and the writing and what Chibnall's done himself, he's made Jodie's Doctor a lot more relatable this year. The fact that she's discovering things, she thought she knew the universe and creation, right? And the Master and Ruth is literally in her face telling her, everything you think you know is a lie. And this is fucking the Doctor up in the head. And I think psychologically and thematically and narratively, it's very exciting to see the Doctor like we've never seen her before in terms of not being the smartest person in the room. So I've really enjoyed that. And I'd say just the negatives of Orphan 55 and last week's going back to basics, basically a couple of unremarkable fillers. But I still think the season of the whole shows me that Chris Chibnall is listening to the fans. He has made it more exciting and more interesting, and it's an improvement. And we'll see what he says next week with Jodie in Liverpool, what the future of this show is. Please like, share and subscribe. Please share the video and the channel, and I'll be back in the days to come, maybe the hours to come, with more Doctor Who content. Be here, be there, or be square.